Hello, friends of Oak Hills. This is Pastor Dale with our weekly video Touchpoint. Today is Thursday, November 7th, 2024. I'm returning to this short series of articles where I'm sharing about my sense of calling on my life and ministry. And I have a third and final call that I have heard or feel from the Lord, and I want to share about that. So, this is calling number 3: train them up. For the last couple of weeks, I have been sharing about my sense of God's calling on my life. The first is to shepherd the flock of Oak Hills, to faithfully follow Christ and live for his kingdom. The second is to proclaim the riches of God's grace, especially to those unfamiliar with the concept of biblical grace. Shorthand, for the kingdom, get the word out. These reflections are one of the results from my sabbatical. While I was in seminary, there was a discussion about longevity in pastoral ministry. One of the professors used an analogy that has stuck with me ever since. He described pastoral ministry as trying to guide people across a swampy, miry, murky lake. On the other side of the lake is eternal life in the presence of Christ. While navigating the lake, there are many obstacles and hindrances that can swallow up people in unbelief. The calling of the pastor is to build gospel platforms in the midst of the lake for people of faith to find refuge from the mire and the muck. The struggle for the pastor, however, is that while he labors in the muck and the mire, even he can lose sight of the big picture, the goal, the aim of Christ overall. The professor pressed this analogy one step further. He said the pastor needs to get out of the lake at regular intervals and rest on the dock on the shore. This dock time, he calls it, is for reflection and refocus on the callings and aims of pastoral ministry and provides the pastor clarity and strength to persevere in his calling. This sabbatical this last summer for me was dock time. It was an opportunity for me to reflect on my calling as a pastor and what God has equipped me and desires and to use me for in his ministry. So my third sense of calling here is to be used by God to train up the next generation of gospel ministers. The shorthand for this is train them up. This calling is personal as well. When I consider my own path to ministry, yes, education was important. But the most significant development came through mentoring relationships with older, wiser pastors and ministers. I think of Rick Sisson, my youth pastor back in Antioch, Illinois, who gave me opportunities to serve in ministry even while I was a teenager. I think of David Livingston, the pastor of adult discipleship at Bethlehem Baptist Church in Minneapolis, whom I met with weekly for 2 years. I think of David George, who was the senior pastor of the church where I served for 7 years in California, who significantly shaped my understanding of a grace-oriented ministry in the local church. There are many others, even lay volunteers, who have served in my life, who have mentored me in my walk with Christ. I am who I am today because of how God used so many different people in my life. I want to be used by God in the training and development of the next generation of ministers. This is how the church grows, ministry expands, and more people are reached with the gospel. There are not enough laborers for the harvest. Yes, as Jesus commands in Matthew 9, we do pray to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers. But we also aim to be used by God to train up those laborers. Who will be sent out from among us at Oak Hills? As was my experience, I believe this is most effective within the context of the local church. I am blessed to enjoy opportunities like the one in Ethiopia this past summer, where I get to serve as a small part in the education of ministry workers. I pray that I will continue to have those kinds of opportunities, as I know the need is great. But my desire is to see ministry workers trained up within our church right here, Oak Hills, both lay ministers and those pursuing vocational ministry. God has made every one of you a minister. He has gifted you and called you as a minister for the sake of the harvest. Paul says in Ephesians 4:16, the whole body, when each part is working properly, makes the body grow so that it builds itself up in love. I want to be used by God in the discipleship, training, and mentoring of more ministers in the church. One prayer I have in connection with this calling is to see Oak Hills to continue to grow. A growing church has more financial availability to hire staff and interns. This would allow Oak Hills to be an environment to not only train up lay ministers, but also be a place where we can mentor those who are pursuing vocational ministry. As a church family, we get the privilege of shaping and equipping the next generation of gospel ministers. I am a product of churches who had the means and opportunities to bring young men like me into their fold who are not done with their education, who are unordained, and to grow and develop as a minister in the context of the local church. I pray that we could do that as well at Oak Hills. So these are my callings I aim to give myself to. For the kingdom, get the word out, train them up. They shape and guide my ministry at Oak Hills. As we are longing to know and make known the astonishing grace of God, may we live for Christ's kingdom, continue to share the good news of Jesus Christ, and see more laborers for the harvest raised up and sent out from our body. I have a few highlights to touch on this week in the life of Oak Hills. First of all, I want to remind you for the month of November, our missionaries of the month are Quinn and Emily Sloan. Quinn Sloan is the RUF minister on the University of Kansas campus right there in Lawrence, and we're praying for his ministry outreach. Quinn and Emily have 2 little children, so we could be praying for their family and praying for family rhythms and health for them. They've been here now for just a little over a year, but still it's a time of adjustment to getting plugged in. They attend Grace Presbyterian Church in Lawrence. Pray for those relationships and their opportunities to grow as followers of Christ. But pray for Quinn's ministry outreach on the campus, the opportunity to meet students, to share the gospel, beginning to form Bible studies and meet weekly in their large group meeting, to see students being discipled and used for ministry to others. Pray for that ministry. It's such an important, vital ministry. This weekend, there's a couple things to draw your attention to. On Saturday night, the women have a special game night at Emily Buck's house. All the women are welcome and invited to be a part of that, encouraged to go out. That's going to be at 6 p.m. on Saturday evening. Reach out, contact Emily Buck for more information and plan to be a part of that. And then on Sunday morning, Woody Jeffrey is continuing his adult Christian education class, considering all that Jesus has commanded, looking at Jesus' commands in the gospel in this 7-week class. I encourage you to come out for the Sunday school hour at 9:30 and for our worship service at 10:30. We'll begin back into Genesis. We're looking at Genesis 9 and God's reestablishment of the covenant of creation with Noah here. It's going to be a rich time. Looking out ahead, there are a couple of things to draw your attention to. Number one, we are receiving gifts to send to Warm Springs, Oregon. This is in partnership with Sacred Road Ministries and their outreach efforts on the Native American reservation to share the joy and good news of Christmas with children on the reservation. And so we are receiving small items, gifts, that will be boxed up and given to kids on the reservation. We're not filling shoe boxes, we're just donating gifts. And so if you're able to purchase gifts to send, and we'll ship them all out, to be there in time for them to sort and prepare for their Christmas outreach program in December. We appreciate you participating in that. We are asking for all those to be delivered to the church by Sunday, November 17th. And then on Wednesday, November 20th, we are going to have a church family Thanksgiving dinner and hymn sing. It's going to be a wonderful night together. I would love for our whole church family to be together on Wednesday evening. Starting at 5:30, dinner is going to be available and ready. We have a variety of smoked meat that will be provided. We'll have a variety of desserts that will be provided if you would like. There's no obligation, But if you would like, you could bring some bread or a side dish to share with those items and fill out our meal. We'll have beverages also available here. And so we're going to enjoy a Thanksgiving dinner together, not turkey, but smoked meat, between 5:30 and 6:30. And at 6:30, we're just going to gather together as a church family and have a Thanksgiving service. It is what we've done every year now for several years, where we have an opportunity to give public testimony of thanks to the Lord for his goodness in our lives and sing traditional hymns from a hymnal, just celebrating God's goodness. So we'd love for you to plan to be a part of that Wednesday, November 20th. Come on out, enjoy dinner with us, enjoy the Thanksgiving hymn sing with us. Well, that's what I have today for our weekly Touchpoint. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to being with you on Sunday for worship. God bless.